back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday. Another week has gone by. We do apologize. We were planning on making the live updates a little more regular. However, I'm sure many of you know the location where we are. We have had our fair share of moisture. So we've been dealing with water as well. Several other neighbors of ours, minor flooding, nothing like what we're seeing near the Ohio River, Indiana, Kentucky. The list goes on. Looking at our website, grandsolarminimum.com, we try to repost articles that we feel that are of big significance for the week and the day. So when you come over to our website, these are stories that we've handpicked to put on display on the front page. We get a European outlook for their spring. The link will always be at the bottom. The little bit of writing sometimes will be from me or Mari, myself. So just wanted to show a couple what we've went through this week. It's been a very active week. On top of all the flooding that we've had quite a bit of winter weather, and the areas that we're looking at here in the pink are still getting the winter weather, as we'll get to the radar here in just a bit. Also wanted to mention again, Broome, Australia, just back in end of January, they were clobbered with a low pressure system that didn't get the proper warning and didn't get the cyclone warning that it should have got because of how quick it developed. Needless to say, they got a bunch of rain back in January. I think a one-day total of 18.56 inches fell in one day. Right now, their 50-day total is at 59.1 inches, and that broke the record from February of 1997. Now, I find this year interesting because I'm starting to see it a lot in a lot of the records that were being broken. 1997 for Broome, Australia. And then we'll go back up here to the top, where the first thing I was talking about was the highest that Cincinnati has seen the Ohio River since 1997. So we're starting to see the pattern, the cycle pattern here that we have talked about many times, not just amongst ourselves, but with our guests that we have brought onto this show. And then finally, this was an interesting article, seismic activity at Yellowstone. We've seen these stories year in, year out, and what I find interesting about these is that when we had our flurry of action. What was it, 200 earthquakes, something like that?
It was over that.
So, and Mari was the one that caught my attention on the article about it. I'd seen the headlines, but she was reading to me, and it's just funny how when something like this happens, it appears that more scientists are they're on the race into the internet to tell us what not a big deal it is. But you know, we are in our Grand Solar Minimum. A lot of us are very educated about what happens during these minimums. John Casey talks about it. Mari, by the way, a beautiful piece on Mount Sinabung. There is some information that you, I think, maybe help clear up a little bit today. Would you mind going in a little bit about what I'm talking about?
With the Sinabung volcano, there's a few news outlets reporting that it's, something that just is recent, and the volcano has been dormant for centuries, and it has woken up. Grand Solar Minimum. Like, blame everything on the Grand Solar Minimum. I'm very cautious about that on this channel. And I did look into that, and that volcano actually awoke in 2010. So I just want to, make sure we're providing the accurate information, because it's easy to get wrapped up in the information you see online and just buy it, the first time you see it. But, we have to vet the information and make sure the message we're getting out there is accurate. And what I saw out there when this first went down was just not accurate information. Now, we wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Was this maybe people were talking about it as it hasn't blown like this in centuries, or did you find that there's been similar explosions with the same ash cloud or close to it?
It varies in size, or the fact is it did the volcano did awaken in 2010, I believe in August of 2010. So, yeah, just to make sure we are delivering the right message. I don't want to say, oh, the grand solar minimum's coming, that's why this is, awakening or whatever. We are watching all the volcanoes become more active, but just be careful with the verbiage and the information. That's all.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of the people that are reporting on this might be just referring to this is probably a explosion that hasn't been seen in quite some time, but still, that could cause some confusion and maybe cause a little more panic than what needs to be. But this was a pretty big eruption. I mean, obviously, you're not downplaying this. The coverage that you've shown was pretty. The part with the kids running from the school, that those are cries of terror. They've been taught in school about what happens when things like this happen. So their reaction was it was such a loud explosion. Looking at the time lapse of it was amazing. It took up the entire screen. The entire screen was covered in sky with ash plume. So obviously we're not downplaying it, but I think it was good research work today by Mari for finding out that this volcano has been active. This might have been the most powerful explosion, but definitely not the only one there. All right. So moving on in here, we're going to do a little space weather news real quick before I show the radar. Taking a look at our TSI numbers, I wanted to show this real fast. On the 15th is the last date. Now, last time I reported on this, which was, I think, Monday, I believe, it was in the 1360.9 range. Now, that was a few days before the 6-hour CME event, and I wanted to show everybody the increase of the TSI. Well, here is the 11th. The data's missing, of course, but here's the 11th. That was the last one I reported, was at 1369. Let me see if I've got the screen on right. Nope, I don't. Sorry, folks. Let me scroll this up so you could all see what I'm talking about here.
Sorry about that. I was paying attention.
No, not your fault at all. Here we go. Just wanted to fix that. All right, so I'm at the very end here, okay? And as of February 15th, we are at the 1361.196. And the data is missing from the CME. From the 12th and 13th is gone. But on the 11th, you see it's at the 1360. And then the next day we have is on the 14th. So, again, very small rise and a very small drop as well. From time to time, this is going to take time. It's not going to be a sudden drop to 1360.0 overnight. But just wanted to show that the data that's missing is reflecting that the CME definitely had something to do with the increased TSI. And it'll be interesting to see what the number is tomorrow and the days to come, see if it starts drifting back towards 1360 before we have that powerful CME. All right, let's go over here to tropical tidbits. Take a look at our forecasting here, GFS. I'll move this around a little bit. This will just be easier to start like this on the eastern side of the country, or unless, Mari, if you want to fix this to where I can get the whole map in real quick.
I would love to help you with that, Mr.
My
Ryan.
producer,
Okay.
Mari, Miss Mari, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, we'll deal with that. So, I'm not even going to try to speculate past really the 28th of February. The rest of it's a guess, like always, but lately the GFS models have been a little bit accurate, and just going to put it in motion. This is through the weekend. We finally dry out by Tuesday. Finally. The area that we're witnessing all this flooding in, take us back just a little bit here on the radar, we're still not even into the worst of it yet. It just started back up today. Moving into Sunday, it builds up intensity right along the same area that's been raining like this for almost a week now straight. And then we see into Sunday, look out Dayton, Ohio, southern Indiana, all of southern Indiana, Pennsylvania, New York. You guys will get it later. And then Sunday evening, this storm gets huge. The rain band goes from New York all the way down to Texas. That's massive. It doesn't look light either. Finally, this storm gets off the coast in the northeast by midday Monday, but now the far south is dealing with heavy precipitation. And we finally clear out by Tuesday next week. A little spotty shower action going on in Texas and Oklahoma. And of course, in the Northwest, it's been the same old for them. Snow and rain, snow and rain. That's the Northwest really has been getting pounded. We haven't really mentioned it much just because of the shock and all that we're seeing in the East and Northeast. But I've noticed the Northwest has been consistently wet for sure, but that's their typical MO. But looking up here on the 28th, now I said I don't want to speculate past the 28th, but this is what they're showing developing on the 28th. Again, we're going to see rain back in the same region again that we've had for almost a week straight now. And it gets worse. By the 1st of March, they are expecting very heavy precipitation. Again, a chance for 4 to 8 inches of rain. Already too much rain right now. And as you can see, going into midday Thursday, into the evening Thursday, heavy rain through the area. Again, the Northeast will get a taste of it as well. And then cold air starts to move into the east and the Northeast as well. But over here in the upper Midwest, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, you guys have been getting pounded for the last 4 to 6 days with winter weather. That doesn't change into the first week of March. You guys will continue to see that heavy snowfall. But I watched this earlier today. This storm tries to regenerate on the backside and make it a snow event in the Northeast by the 3rd of March and just kind of hangs around for a little bit. There we see another dry period on to March 4th. And again, this is really far out now. We're talking almost 2 weeks. But another interesting setup happening late first week of March. Another big low pressure system that's going to clobber the upper Midwest and the northern plains and suck it to the eastern region once again in the form of rain and snow before finally moving off the coast. And guys, I guess the narrative of the forecast here in the United States is going to be a very stormy and wet pattern where, I thought here earlier in the year that we were going to see temperatures stay in a certain cold, and I think that sudden stratospheric warm up has changed a lot of things, and I wouldn't be surprised if spring didn't start on time here in this area. As cold as it's been all winter, we've had our fair share of winter weather. Looking at space weather conditions real fast, solar wind speed is just above the 560 mark with a density of around 4.5, 5 right now. We have been in storm conditions today, reaching a KP indice as high as 5. So that put us in a brief storm, and this is showing our auroras. The Northeast, if it wasn't so darn cloudy, I'd say get out and try to take a look at it tonight, but you all know we are getting rain and cloud coverage. Looking at our solar proton flux, very normal tonight, very calm. Like I said, the KP hit 5 earlier today, and other than that, it's been hovering around 2 and 3 all day, so pretty minor. And the reason why we had, we've got several coronal hole situations going on right now, and that's part of the reason why. But there's another one that we're getting ready to deal with. It's turning earth-facing right now. NOAA forecasters are saying that we will see the solar winds somewhere around the 26th to 27th. It could spark up minor G1 geomagnetic class storms. The last storm that we had, I'd said that with that coronal hole, we'd see solar wind speeds peaking out around 625 kilometers. This one's a lot narrower than the previous coronal hole, so we're probably going to see somewhere between 450 and 550. So not a big solar wind, nothing super impressive, but again, it will be creating some unsettled conditions in our upper atmospheres during that time. So something we'll keep a track on. But before we wrap it up tonight, the biggest thing, and I opened up tonight's video on the Mount Sinabung because a lot of information I think that need to be corrected, but these are some concerning times right now. We're flooding multiple areas. I've never seen so many counties in flood warnings at the same time. I've never seen so many winter weather advisories in the same storm that has brought us all this flooding. And it just brings me back, like I told you guys earlier, when you're looking at articles online and you see, stories about a 200 earthquake swarm in Yellowstone, and scientists say, don't worry. And then you've got Mount Sinabung blowing this huge ash cloud that scared the bejesus out of me just looking at it without sound. That's concerning. When you have several earthquake upticks, and lately we've seen, here in the last month, we've seen a few 7 magnitude earthquakes, close to an 8 a couple different times. So, just remember, you guys that tune into our channel and other Grand Solar Minimum channels, because each channel has its own angle on the topic. So each channel you watch, hopefully you're gathering something from each channel and putting it together, and that's where you can find the calm, is that this is going to happen, things are going to be changing. And again, this is a slow change, in my opinion. Like, we haven't seen normal winters in a few years. That's why this year seems so harsh. But watch, next couple of winters are going to be a little bit worse than this one, but not by a lot. But by 2028, 2030, that's when we're supposed to see the really cold winter. So this is the appetizer to the main course. And, we have to get a handle of things now, because they're not going to be the same in 10 years from now. Things are going to go a lot more acceleration in the process of the solar minimum. And this planet, and I don't care what anybody says, I heard a solar physicist, an actual solar physicist, claim that we had the 8th warmest January on record, which again he didn't mention since '79. But just hearing people hanging on to this global warming, that he's telling everybody that the planet is still warming and it's our fault. I think by now enough people, a lot of people that are subscribed here, they've been here for a long time. Like I said, you guys follow other channels. It's starting to become apparent now that these global warming people are worried about losing their grant money. These professors, these physicists, these labs all over the world are now concerned about losing their funding, and they might have to find a job at a laboratory where they're studying global cooling. So I just find it it's upsetting to see how hard and desperate these people are trying to keep this lie alive. And only time will tell. The next several years coming up, we're definitely going to be able to see the trends. But, this guy was talking about quickly before I forget, he was talking about how we're looking at this incline here on the changes of the temperature anomaly from 79. This is Dr. Roy Spencer. I do highly recommend his work. He is about natural cycles. None of this is man-made. And he's one of the very few that actually recognize this without prejudice, in my opinion. But I wanted to show you here at the very end, we're taking a look at the end of this graph, which, yes, I'll acknowledge that we've seen an incline from 79. But the warming stops here in 2016 when we hit the peak of 0.88 in February of 2016. We've had a steep drop since. We had a slight rebound earlier in the 17, but since then we have plummeted back down. January's numbers were a plus 0.26 degrees Celsius. And February, in my opinion, the lower troposphere, we all know that sudden stratospheric warm-up pushed colder Arctic air into the lower troposphere. So the temperature anomaly, in my opinion, is either going to come back the same or slightly lower. I'd be surprised if it did rise, but I don't expect a dramatic drop either, because I think February could have been a lot worse than a lot of some of the forecasters were saying it was going to be. Still cold. The northern plains, you guys got rocked. It's sub-freezing temperatures the majority of the month of February. And I made a comment today in one of the Facebook groups about it not being as cold in New York, and a lady replied back and she goes, but I thought it was 25 degrees out there on such and such day. And my reply was, when you dealt with the winter that we dealt with earlier in December and January, 25 degrees is a little balmy. That last snowstorm that we had, it had about 1.5 feet of snow to shovel. It was 31 degrees outside. Guys, I was out there for 2 hours and enjoyed it, loved it. It was the best shoveling experience of the year by far. It's a lot better to shovel when it's 31 degrees outside than when it's 14 degrees outside with -5 wind chill. Trust me. Mari, I've walked in the house after shoveling in that really cold weather in January and December as if you need to call 911. I'm getting ready to die. But the snow shoveling, the last storm we had, like I said, 31 degrees, nice. That was balmy. But anyway, I'm babbling now. I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Mari and I will try to get back to some normalcy of programming here on this channel. We have, like I said, we've been dealing with flooding here in Buffalo.
I told our viewers in the chat that we also have a mini sinkhole in the front of our house as well.
No, that actually we're going to get some pictures of because that seems to be getting worse, and we can actually see underneath the street now.
Yeah.
So if you shine a light in there, there is no earth between the pavement and below it, and I haven't really shone it much further to find out where that hole stops, and I hope somebody gets out here soon and does something.
Good.
So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in again. We'll talk soon. Another week has gone by. We do apologize. We were planning on making the live updates a little more regular. However, I'm sure many of you know the location where we are. We have had our fair share of moisture. So we've been dealing with water as well. Several other neighbors of ours. Minor flooding. Nothing like what we're seeing near the Ohio River, Indiana, Kentucky. The list goes on. Looking at our website, grandsolarminimum.com, we try to repost articles that we feel that are of big significance for the week and the day. So when you come over to our website, these are stories that we've handpicked to put on display on the front page. We get a European outlook for their spring. The link will always be at the bottom. The little bit of writing. Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday,